what if I started off this video with a dictionary definition? No, I won't do that, but I will kind of do that. Did you know that there's a Japanese word for working oneself to death? You probably did, because you'll oftentimes see some guy on Reddit talking about how great it must be to live in Japan, and then some other guy chimes in with, well, did you know that Japanese work culture is so grueling that they have a specific word for working oneself to death? Well, I'm here to tell you that that second person is wrong. There's actually 3 words. One is karoshi, and the other 2 are Katamari damashi. Okay, that's actually not true. Katamari damashi really means clump spirit. Anyways. So if you've played Katamari damashi, then you know that the controls are kind of bad. You'd think that a game that really only has one action, and that action being roll around, that it would be easy to simplify things down to, say, a Super Monkey Ball level of control. That game feels great, and it literally only uses one analog stick. Move stick, roll ball. Nice. But not so with Katamari. I think if you've played the game enough that the controls become sort of second nature, so that when a new person picks it up, they go, wait, what is this? What am I doing? And then all the veterans go, oh, yeah, sorry about that. And then the remasters even make a little apology by way of a newer, simplified control scheme. But I think that there are games where feeling the controls is kind of the point of the game. I think a lot of developers treat their controls as you might treat editing in a movie. The point is to be so good that you don't think about it. You only notice editing when it's bad, and if you notice good film editing, then you're a weird nerd. I'd say most games operate under this philosophy of feel natural, be unnoticeable. But some games scoff at this. One of the largest scale examples I can think of audiences having to come face to face with a game forcing you to feel the controls is The Last Guardian. Now, I love all 3 games in that trilogy, and I will be defending the way that they control and play until the day that I die. I think that The Last Guardian was a particularly tough hang for some people because on top of the weird controls, you were also dealing with more or less training a brand new puppy who didn't want to listen to you. But I think a valuable lesson to get into the habit is when you encounter something like the controls in The Last Guardian or Katamari is to not assume that they're that way by accident, as in, they tried to make the controls intuitive but failed. I think it's much more interesting to say, the game is this way on purpose, so why did they make it that way? Because you know what, I played with the newer control scheme and I turned it off after maybe 1 or 2 levels. The older control scheme is bad, but also it's kinda good. Because it feels like work. The prince is very much doing a chore for the entirety of the game, and boy if it doesn't feel like it. The concept of rolling a ball around to collect increasingly larger objects to roll an even bigger ball around sounds just kind of inherently satisfying and even a little relaxing. Zone out, roll ball, collect objects, right? And while the game is certainly satisfying, it's absolutely not relaxing, at least not for me. And that comes down to A, there's a timer with this alarm that plays near the end, I mean, come on. And B, those dang controls we talked about. The prince is not being sent on a vacation, this isn't his hobby, this is a job. And what's worse, his job is cleaning up someone else's mess. And so now we have to talk about whose mess that is. The king of the cosmos. I was honestly surprised by how well liked the king is by the fanbase. There's truly a staggering amount of fan art and cosplay of this guy. And I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that yes, I do realize that Katamari is chiefly a comedic game and the king is a purposefully ridiculous character, but even taking that into account, I was repulsed by him. The plot of Katamari kicks off with the king literally spinning around in space so fast and so recklessly that he destroys all of the stars in the sky. If you were to ask the average person if destroying every star in the sky is a bad thing, they'd probably say, kinda, yeah. But even realizing what he's done, the king has not a single care in the world. He's sorry, but only performatively. Heart emoji. He had fun, and he'd do it again. The consequences of his actions don't matter to him. If he breaks anything, the prince is there to pick up the pieces. Or rather, you're there to pick up the pieces, and then roll them into a huge ball, which then gets turned into a star, as it goes. So the plot of the game is cleaning up someone else's mess, but to add insult to insult, at every step along the way, the king is bored and unimpressed with your progress. Every level ends with essentially the same message. Please do a better job next time, heart emoji. I think it's very easy to, at multiple steps along your Katamari journey, to stop and ask, wait, why am I doing this? Who am I doing it for? I've seen people interpret the message of the game to be one of personal growth. You start out tiny and insignificant, and then slowly tackle larger and larger problems until the problems you're tackling are massive skyscrapers, islands, and even weather phenomena. I think this is a great and even correct interpretation. But when I got to that final level, the one where you're rolling up skyscrapers, islands, and weather phenomena, I had this moment where it all just became static in my mind. The game uses maximalism to stress you out and overwhelm your senses, but in that final level, all the stuff became white noise. None of it meant anything. Me rolling up an aircraft carrier was going to impress the king of the cosmos just as much as it did when I was rolling up paper clips. There's that question again. Why? The more I thought about this question, and the closer I got to the end of Katamari Damacy, the harder it was for me to not think about a little game called Okami. If you're unfamiliar, Okami is a 3D Zelda-like developed by the since shut down but still legendary Studio Clover. Okami is famous for two things aside from being incredibly good, and that's its incredible art style and its incredible length. It's easily one of the longest single-player games I've ever played all the way to the end credits. It's also one of the most thematically and narratively satisfying experiences I've ever had in a game, and its length actually plays a part in that. In Okami, you play as Amaterasu, an honest-to-God, well, goddess. But despite this, you're pretty frequently treated like garbage by most of the NPCs in the game, no better than a stray mutt off the streets. You spend hours and hours cleansing corruption and restoring beauty to Japan, which is fulfilling in and of itself, but narratively is a pretty thankless job for old Amy. But then, you get to the final boss. Things are looking grim, and just when it seems like all is lost, your constant companion through the game, Isun, comes through with an incredible assist. He's gone back around to every person you've helped throughout the game and set the record straight. Their lives are better because you were there to help them. The trees bloom and the sun rises because of Amaterasu. And it's time to give her your thanks. And so, powered up by the people's very belief in her, Amaterasu gets to have a pretty amazing "I'm not locked in here with you, you're locked in here with me" moment with the final boss. What a feeling! Katamari Damacy is about whatever the opposite of that feeling is. But there is one aspect of the narrative that I've completely avoided until now, the Hosino family. There's a whole series of cutscenes that play out whose story could safely be summed up as a mom and two kids go to watch their dad go to space and then all end up on the moon somehow. These cutscenes seem, like most things in the game, to be completely nonsensical and just for a laugh at first, but I think they do fit pretty squarely in with the rest of the game. Because along the way, the kids are very much noticing the changes happening in the world because of the prince. They notice when the stars are gone, and when they slowly start coming back. They even see the king appear, terrifyingly, over the ocean at one point. At every step, the mom goes, "Oh, that's nice, dear. Come along now." But the kids aren't just noticing your work. They're feeling it. At the end of every level, in addition to the king belittling your hard work, you also see the daughter of the Earth family have a sort of cosmic connection with the constellations appearing back in the sky. And as with everything in the game, it's weird, hilarious, and charming, but it's also the only time in the game where you feel like someone sees your work. You never meet the Hosino family face to face, but they're watching, or at least the kids are watching along as you clean up the king's mess. The final line of the game is even spoken by the son who says, "Wow, stars sure are pretty." Someone knows what you're doing, even if they don't quite understand it. So what do we make of all this? Bad controls, the ever-uncaring king of the cosmos, the Hosino family, the endless toil. For me, Katamari Damacy makes me think of every shitty job I've ever had. Or every time I've poured my heart into something creative only for it to not turn out how I wanted or for no one to see it. It sucks to roll a big boulder up a hill, get to the top, and have the boulder roll all the way back down again. I think that whether it's in your career or your creative pursuits, it's easy to get stuck circling the drain of, why am I doing this? That's when we turn to storytelling for answers, because stories oftentimes ask these same questions, or at least questions a lot like them. Katamari Damacy asks, what do you do in the face of insignificance? Or rather, what do you do if nothing you do means anything? Katamari Damacy answers, you do it anyways, but not for the people who don't care, not for the ones who don't value your hard work and effort. You do it for the ones who notice, the ones that give their appreciation and their thanks, the ones who know that without you, there would be no stars in the sky. And here's the thing, the only person that notices might just be you, and that's okay. I think it's incredibly valuable to be able to work really hard at something, and then you stand back, be proud, and think it's good, even if there's no one else in the audience. You might be a lonely rolling star, but just imagine how dim the night sky would be without you. Thanks, Katamari. Heart emoji.